Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conversations on Craft, where we dive into the messy and magical world of writing and we demystify the publishing process. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Liza DeBlock, literary agent and judge for a Cent Novel Prize. Liza moved to Greenstone Literary Agency in 2025, and before this, she honed her skills selling international rights for major Sunday Times and New York Times best-selling authors such as Richard Osmond, Claire Douglas, Abigail Dean and many more, and today she represents a diverse list of amazing writers including HWA debut nominated Stacey Thomas and thriller writer Natalie Chandler and many more writers. Liza, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. I'm excited to be here. Let's talk craft.
Yes, we're going to start off with our quick fire round. Book or Kindle?
I just got a new Kindle, so I'm in a Kindle mode right now. Yeah.
Your favourite genre?
Fantasy.
The worst way to start a query letter?
Ooh, cracking a joke.
I thought you were going to say Dear Sirs.
Oh, that yeah. If I see Dear Sirs, or if I see like the wrong name, the wrong name doesn't hurt me as much as Dear Sirs. But yeah.
Are you series or standalone?
I like a series.
And is there a worse way to end a query letter?
Just kind of being like slightly down about your book or kind of negative in any way, saying like something along the lines of like, I know this is probably really bad, but I think it's just a time to be really positive and excited. So I just want to see good things on the page. So no detractors, just excitement.
Fantastic. So we're going to start off diving into your advice because you're an editorial focused agent. And I just want to flag up that you did an amazing podcast with the wonderful gentleman at Page One recently.
Oh yeah, I love them.
Yeah, I'll put that in the show notes because it's one of my favourite podcasts at the minute. Those men are amazing. So when you edit a manuscript, how do you begin? Where do you start?
I typically start just by reading the whole thing. I know you've got to read the whole thing, and then I like to do really big edits, and then the edits start getting smaller and smaller and smaller because I don't want to do kind of on page line edits or anything like that unless everything else is the structure is really in place. So I'm looking at the overall arcs, the themes, if things are coming through, if I feel big gut punches when the emotions are supposed to land or not, or if we need more info or a new scene added, or if we can cut a scene. So we're doing the really big things first. So it's kind of like you're building a puzzle. All my books and the way that I see them, they do come to me as puzzles. And sometimes you can see that almost all the pieces are there, but you might need to kind of turn a few that aren't just fitting in just correctly. Or we need to completely rebuild the bottom. And so I want to make sure that all the puzzle places are in place and ready to stitch together to make that whole portrait before everything starts getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So I'll go through, I will write notes on my Kindle as I'm reading through. I'll go back and review. I'm looking at the characters. I'm looking at the setting. I'm looking at all the really big ticket items and saying, does this all come together beautifully or not? And then once we've got that more or less kind of ready to go, I start going through and I'm like, would she really say this here? Or let's kind of fix this grammar a little bit there. And they just get smaller and smaller and smaller. But you have to start big and get little, or else it just doesn't work, and the puzzle becomes a little bit too muddled when you're trying to put everything together.
When you take on a new book, is there like a level of work that you're able to put into it? Like how close does a submission have to be?
I think it depends a lot on what the book is and the potential that you see in it. And it also genuinely comes down to how much work am I also doing at that moment in time for all my other clients. Because you'll be submitting to me, but if I have a few client manuscripts on the go at that moment or time, It might change what I can do for you at that moment and the edits that I can put into it. So there might be times where I say, listen, I really like this. Here's some broad general advice, but these big changes need to happen before I think I can really do something with it. And then you would go and come back and I'd see if those changes had really been made and then see if I can add anything to it. And so for me, though, there have been times where I've said, I understand what this book could be, but this is what I think you really need to do, but I can't do a line edit for you right now, or I can't really pull this apart with you. You have to do it. Because I'm also looking to see, can the author do it? Can they actually make those changes? And there's nothing worse than kind of when you take an author on and you say, let's do all this work, and then they say, actually, I really don't want to. And then I say, I can't then sell this book. And it's a difference of opinion and belief of what this book could be. So there are times where I say, yes, let's do all this work. And there are times where I say, oh, it actually doesn't need very much at all. But I always say that you need to send out your book when you need professional help, because you can't do anything more to it. And you need somebody else to really look at it and help you bring it to the next level. And that's up to you. And then it's up to me to decide if I'm the person that can really help with that or not. Because ultimately, it doesn't serve you or me if we can't get to a place where I can say, I can sell this for you, and you can become a published author. So that's what I'm thinking about as I'm saying, do I think they can do the work on this? And do I think this could go out and ultimately become a published book?
How do you know when it's ready to go out?
You just can't do any more to it. I think you kind of get that, it's like the weird, like, tingly feeling, like the spidey sense a little bit, where you can't do anything more to it, and you need then an editor to take a look at it and say, okay, this is my opinion on this. This is what we're going to do. This is how I'm going to publish it. This is the vision adding on to it. So you go through multiple layers of people helping you and wanting to get it ready. And when you're talking with an editor about it, then you want to make sure that their vision only adds to your vision or creates something more positive about the book. I always say that I never want to sell a book and then an author gets into the room with their editor for the first time and they say, I really like it, but let's set it on the moon. And you're just like, what are you talking about? You want to make sure that the book only gets built upon in a way that you think will make it better and kind of even bigger. But there's some times where authors don't understand something and I have to explain it to them. And kind of say, well, this will help it fit more into the market, or I think this is a really good idea, like we kind of should do this. But it should always be a conversation, and an author should always be open and willing to have those conversations.
Fantastic. Are there any common mistakes that you see writers making?
I think people sometimes get a little too stuck into nitty-gritty bits every once in a while, and they like to over-explain some things, and it detracts from the story. So I think when you're writing, always kind of question whether each word is adding to moving the story forward. Make sure that everything's compelling you to keep going and keep reading, and don't just kind of sit in something. Don't be precious about something that you have if it's just not adding anything to the story. And I think that people kind of can get entrenched in what they want a book to be, and don't see what it actually is.
Interesting. I always need help with this, and most writers I know need help with this. How do we write a great synopsis? I'd rather write a whole other book like than write a synopsis.
And it is cruel that it's cruel that we're making you like basically do a 500-word piece on what your book is. But the way that let's talk about the reason why we have a synopsis in the submission package to begin with. So you write a great cover letter I'm in love with your writing. I want to continue reading, but first I want to kind of see, should I invest and continue reading? Because there's some genres where you can do 90% of the book and then the last 10% it falls apart spectacularly. Particularly I'm thinking of like crime and thriller where like the twists don't land or things just don't pull together in a right way, or a rom-com, you just feel horrible at the end and when you want to feel wholesome. So what we want to do is we'll read and then I will go into your synopsis and kind of say, does this make sense as to what's going to happen next? Should I kind of like invest and keep going down this plot in this rabbit hole? So a synopsis is there to explain your book. And it's supposed to be, though, I always call it like the Google Maps directions of a book. You want to start at plot point A, and you want to arrive safely at your end. And so you want to get the directions between the beginning and the end, and that is it. Like no adjectives, no adverbs, don't talk about themes. You literally want to say, she woke up one day and the world exploded. And then she went to find this person. And then they did this. And then he did that. And it's very boring. It's very kind of brought back to the basics. It's literally just like if you're playing Monopoly, it's one box at a time to get from like start all the way back around to go and keep going. So I always say if you want, think about it as bullet points where you write your first bullet point with your first plot point, your last plot point, bullet point, and then the middle bullet point in between. And then you do the rest of the bullet points and it's literally just a list and it should be like, she then goes here, she learns this, she does that. And then once you have that, connect the dots and turn them into paragraphs, and then leave it alone. Leave it alone for a day or two, for a week, and then go back to it and read it and say, oh my God, I can't believe I got really entrenched with thinking that like we had to explain how they get up the volcano. Or I completely missed out when she goes to see her father and gets this really big secret unveiled. So leave it alone and then go back and look at it and then do your edits and kind of keep tinkering away at it before handing it to another person and saying, does this make sense as a story? Do you understand what she's like, how she's getting from point A to point B? That's what you need to do. So it takes a while to do. It should be really boring and you just want to follow your map's directions from beginning to end. So once again, you have to kind of slightly be like dispassionate about it and you just have to be very logical about the steps that you're going to take. So don't be creative is basically what to get down to for a synopsis.
I think that's the anxiety for many writers. You look at your synopsis and you think it's so dry.
It should be. Genuinely, we're not looking for the most beautiful creative writing piece that you've ever done in your entire life. Put that into the blurb. Like, get that excitement in there. Synopses are supposed to be absolutely boring. So if you're doing that, you're doing the right thing.
Everyone watching or listening now can breathe a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
It's okay, everyone. It's all right. We're going to move on to your insights into the publishing world. And can you talk to us about, it feels like it's more competitive than ever. Can you talk to us about the numbers of submissions you're seeing and your thoughts on how writers can break into the industry?
So I get hundreds of queries into my box every month. And it's nice to see people being so creative and having a fun time and wanting to do this, but I also understand how hard it is. And so my biggest suggestion when you want to break into this is do your homework. Listen to podcasts like this. Listen to how to write your synopsis, how to do all those elements of a submissions package, and then find the right agents to go after. You can look in the UK, you can look in the US, across whatever language your book is in, but do the homework and find the specific people that really want your book and want something like it. And so that's going to give you a greater chance of success. Like I was saying, if you walk into a room and an editor goes, we're going to set your book on the moon, Likewise, you don't want to send it to that person who's going to change it completely or doesn't want to see something like this. They want something else. So if you're writing a rom-com, don't send it to a sci-fi and fantasy agent. They're not going to change their mind overnight. Send it to the right people. You wouldn't apply to go to university to do a science degree through like the liberal arts colleges. Like you have to figure out exactly who those people are that you need to apply to. And that takes research and that takes time. So you have to be willing to invest the time to go to a bookstore and pull books off shelves and see who the agents are of those books. So do your homework, do your research, and be slightly stubborn about it. And that's what's going to really help you break into the industry. And then also know when it might be time to hang up a book. You can see if it's going to sell or not, or if people are really excited about it, or if it kind of runs cold. But take everything that you've learned from that writing journey and that submissions journey and then put it into something else that you're excited about. And keep going with that. And keep taking everything that you learn along the way and fueling it back into that submissions journey. So that's the biggest advice is do your homework. Listen to what people are looking for, what they want, what people are reading around you, and how that inspires you in your book and your journey. You have to do homework. I wish I could say like it's just this one thing you have to say. This is like the secret password. But unfortunately it's not.
I did see in a previous agency where you worked, writers had submitted the first book and it wasn't a great fit, and then they submitted a second book, and then it was that second book that the agents then wanted to represent.
And it's been one of those things where we can see if somebody has talent, and so there's sometimes where I'll write back to a submission and I'll just be like, listen, I loved your writing. I love this element, I love that one. I was like, but this one just isn't clicking. If you write anything else, please send it back to me because you're a good writer, but this one just isn't it right now. And sometimes I know it's really frustrating to get that response, but sometimes it then leads people to go on and figure out exactly how to hone in on their ideas, how to write a little bit differently and elevate an idea or a pitch, and then come back and say, yeah, this is what I'm going to be doing for my next book. And then we just love it even more.
So inspiring to hear.
Work with, yeah.
Yeah. When your writers first launch as a debut, what do you think shocks them most about the publishing world and the process that they go through?
I think it's very much a hurry up and wait kind of process where everything will happen at once and then you'll hear nothing for months. And it's because publishing will be doing its stuff in the background. They'll be talking to sales and marketing, they'll be talking to booksellers, they'll be doing all this type of stuff, and the author will just be sitting there kind of like twiddling their thumbs, writing their next books, kind of saying, what's going on? And then we'll be like, here's the marketing plan, here's this, here's that, oh, we're a month away, blah, blah, blah. So I think it can be really hard because people think that silence means rejection, or that things are happening, or that things aren't going out well, when actually in the background a lot of stuff is going on. You just don't see it because you aren't going to work with your editor every day. And so I think that's what gets people the most, is the hurry up and wait aspect of publishing.
Do you have to like calm writers down a little bit during these moments? How do you work?
Yes, you do. And there are time. I have authors who are just like, whatever, it's gonna happen, and then I have other authors who are just like, what's happening now? What's going on? Like, can we talk about it? And you kind of have to be a little bit of a chameleon and help figure out what each individual needs to make sure that they're okay and that they're in the best space to kind of write their book and the next thing. So there are authors that I talk with every day. There are authors that like they throw their book at me, they disappear, I return edits, they receive them, and then they disappear. And so it can vary between who needs what. But know that like know that an agent will respond to what you need, and that's something that you need to kind of ask about when you're having a conversation about potential representation of how they work, how they interact with you, and kind of what they would expect from you and vice versa.
How do you approach that call? So you've had a submission, you love it, you want to offer representation. What happens for you during that call, and do you have advice for what authors should check?
I know it's always like a really weird blind date, because like you love something, so like you love like something this person has written, but you don't actually know the person. So you're kind of feeling each other out a little bit. You're like, is this, are we gonna get married now? Like, are we gonna go to prom together, or what's going to happen? So I always kind of like to talk to a person and kind of figure out them a little bit, and see who they are, how they work, how they function, ideas that they have. I'll be asking about what they want to write next. And then I always talk about the edits that I want to do. Because once again, if you're not on the same page editorially, it's not going to work. And then I try to just explain what my vision of the book is and who I would want to sell it to, and kind of what I see for it going forward, so that we're on the same page and we kind of know what each other's expectations are. And then for authors, I always say, you need to ask about how the working relationship goes. You need to ask what's expected of you, and you need to be honest about what you want, when it comes to that. Do you want to be on the phone every day with this person? Do you want to disappear into the ether while you write? And then you also have to ask, once again, the vision of the agent for your book. You want to make sure it makes sense. You want to ask about rights. You want to ask about how they sell internationally, film and TV, the types of editors this book is going to be sent to, and just it's really hard, because there are a lot of things that would make sense to me to ask that I know authors are kind of like, they don't know that they exist.
Yeah, like what happens if a book doesn't sell? And the first time I heard that, I thought, once you've got an agent, well, hey.
Yeah.
But then the whole process begins again. And do
yeah.
you have advice for what agents should ask, what writers should ask around if my book doesn't sell?
And that's the thing. You can literally ask, what happens if my book doesn't sell? What's the plan? And there are multiple ways that agents could answer that, and you want to see kind of how the working relationship would change. So like when I sign somebody on, I sign somebody because I love their writing and I believe that they will eventually write a book that can sell. And you want to make sure then that the working, like, what happens to that working relationship? Are they going to dump you if your book doesn't sell, which they shouldn't? Or what are the options? What are the different ways we can keep moving forward in a way? Because obviously you're both working together to get something to publication. And you want to see what happens if that ultimately doesn't happen on the first time round. And the thing is, most people's first books don't sell. And so it could be their second or their third that sell. Like I've seen an author sell in like her fifth book, but then it became huge. But she needed that time and that experience to get better at what she was doing. And so you want to just ask that straight question: what happens if my book doesn't sell? I'm hopefully expecting an offer for an author where her first book didn't sell, but we found an editor who kind of loved the idea of it, and we worked with them together to get to a point where we should be selling this book, hopefully this week or next. And so you want to see you want to know what those routes and those alternatives are.
And from the outside, it looks like the industry has an absolute obsession with debuts. And a lot of writers I know think, oh, you have your debut and then there's no career after that. What advice do you have? Is a long-term career as a writer a thing of the past?
I think that people don't know the history, actually, of the people who were able to be long-term career writers. If you look at the history of publishing itself, long-term career writers, the big names that we know, were very wealthy people. They didn't have a mortgage and kids in daycare and jobs on the side, because that's actually really only a more modern phenomena. And that's because the publishing industry has gotten bigger and more people are actually able to read. Books are becoming way more popular, which is really good. But that's something that really only happened in about the last 150 years. So this sadly is still a new phenomena for us, the idea of a career writer. And there are always going to be books that make it big that will change a person's life. But the truth of it is that most books don't ever turn a profit. And it's the very few that pay for the rest of the books. And so what I always say, though, is like, if you want to be a writer and you want to do this professionally, that's great. That's one avenue of your life that you can do. So write your debut, sell your debut, and then the only thing that's in your control after that is just continuing to write good, fun books that you love and see how it goes. And you can be market savvy about switching tact or genre along the way if you want to, but that comes into the business aspect of publishing. So you have to have a mind for that and an idea about that as well. So becoming a long-term career publishing author is a slog. And most people are unable to quit their day jobs, sadly. But it's something, though, that people do because they love it and they want to keep doing it. So don't give up on it and keep going for it. But know that, like anybody's career in any industry, that you might get fired from a job, you might be made redundant, you might switch mid-career to another company, or you might get promoted. So it is a career. It's going to have the peaks, the troughs, everything in between. We all can't be J.K. Rowling and keep going. So you need to think about it like that. Get your debut, be excited about it, but remember, this is a long haul type of career. It's not a short blip.
And can you describe for us the difference between lead titles and mid-list writers, and how that kind of works for a writer's career? And can you break out of being mid-list?
You can, yeah, and you can go from lead title to mid-list. You can go up, down, and all around and in between. But I think what you're looking for your debut is you really want things behind it. And I feel like sometimes it can be a hindrance to be called a lead title, because if it flops, then you're delegated to another part of the list. Or if it does really, really well, you can keep going with it. And so I think the lead, mid, everything like that, it just kind of changes the connotations of like marketing spend or anything along those lines. But it doesn't mean that your book is no less kind of important or has potential in a way. It just means that it could be, you're just servicing a different part of the market in one way, shape, or form.
How many slots does a publishing company have for like lead titles?
It depends. It depends on publishing schedule, how many books that imprint actually does per year. But typically they want to do basically like one big lead like per season. And that can definitely change as well. And so it all depends on what they have on their slate already, what other books are up against it. It's a weird multitude of factors.
When you're taking on new writers, Liza, how do you ensure that you're representing a diverse list of authors? I
think, I don't know, because like I've always just gone for books that I've liked, and I think when I read submissions, I'm really bad for the fact that like I don't read your name, and I typically don't read the About You section of the cover letter until after I've read your book and know that I kind of want to continue with it. So I try to say that I read blind in a sense, so that I go in and I'm really looking for your pitch, and I'm really looking for what the story is about. And then it's just down to, does this book fascinate me? And I'm drawn to things that I don't know. I'm drawn to characters that I'm like, but characters that I'm also not like. And I think I'm just ultimately drawn to an adventure. And so I think that I'm open to seeing whatever that is, from whatever person that comes from whatever space that comes from. So I just try to be as open-minded as possible. And I'm trying to do kind of a lot more talks and a lot more outreach and one-to-ones and all this type of stuff, so that people feel like they should submit to me and that I want to hear from them and hear their stories, because I'm always seeking something new, something different. That's what excites me. So I'm just looking for good stories, and I'm fully aware that that can come from anywhere and anyone. I just want a good book and good writing.
What do you think editors are looking for right now?
At this moment in time, everybody still loves fantasy and romantasy, which, as a book nerd deep at heart, I'm very happy about. And so I think people are looking in the fantasy space. We've seen a lot more kind of things that bleed into horror. And we've also seen some kind of like funny romantasy coming through. We've had cozy and sweet, which is really nice, but now I'm seeing some funnier stuff come through.
I think it's so hard writing comedy. Writers who can pull that off, super talented.
It's such a voice thing, and if it hits, it hits, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. And so I'm always happy to kind of see really good voice and just sassy characters, which I love. Crime and thriller, I think people are just looking for anything right now that fits kind of a good, you could have like a really good solid domestic thriller again. Everybody's looking for the white whale of a new exciting police procedural or just any sort of procedural. And for me, I'm looking for more kind of like things with speculative twists or high concept. I really love things that take our world and kind of flip it on their head a little bit. So I recently read a book called The Compound, and it looks at modern day like game and dating shows and puts it in a slightly kind of not like post-apocalyptic world, but a world where you know something has gone on. And these people are still vying for love and prizes and affections, and it just kind of puts the mirror up to our society a bit. So I'm always looking for things that does that and kind of exposes who we are and what we are.
That sounds incredible. Do you know, I've started to watch Traitors with my daughter. I kept thinking, how can I get this feeling I have watching Traitors into a book?
Yeah.
It's like, this is incredible. How do I put this in a book? And I've not come up with a solution yet.
Yeah. But it's one of those things where like
cloaks,
it's very intense,
it's
like
gothic, it's
backstabbing. You don't know who's gonna get you. Like you go to bed not knowing if you're gonna be like killed or not. And so I think it's one of those things where like I've seen a few kind of books come through that are based like loosely off of the Traitors, where it's like a game show where like they're supposed to be murdering somebody, but then somebody really does get murdered, and I was like, people are on the same brainwave. This is good. Keep it coming. But I think people are looking just for books right now in the world where they can escape. They either want something kind of that makes them feel happy and fulfilled at the end, or they're doubling down on kind of the slight intensity that the world is facing right now, and they're like, well, it's not as bad as this book. But
that's bleak, Liza, isn't it?
Yeah, I know, it's really sad, but people are looking for a way to enter a different part of their mind and a way to just be entertained in the long run. Yeah.
What advice do you have for writers who are struggling to break into the industry? The barriers can seem so high at times.
Like I said before, just do your homework. You have to understand that while publishing is creative, it is an industry still, it is a business. So you can either try writing something more to trend, or you can take that trend and push it, or you could write something crazy that's its own new thing that starts a new trend. But ultimately, you have to be creative, but you have to be looking at the business of it, and you have to be a little bit stubborn and willing to learn from every experience that you have in the industry. But do your homework. Yeah.
I just want to say that Liza takes submissions through Greenstone Literary's submissions page via the website. Yeah. So if you're interested in submitting to Liza or her agency, please visit the website. I'll put a link in our show notes and you can have a look at that process. Are there any books that you're desperate to acquire at the moment?
Oh my god. I really would love something like in the vein of The Compound, which I really did enjoy. I really want urban fantasy. It can lean horror at this moment in time, paranormal romancy-esque as well. And I'm just also looking for a really good thriller. I just want to be entertained. I always say that I love characters that are put into situations that I would never want to be in, that then have to get out of those situations. I love seeing how they do it. So I think I love that. In general, I also love dark academia. That can be within a thriller setting. That can be within fantasy setting across the board. Just give me something weird. Give me something speculative about academia. I love archives. I'm like, what other random things do I love? But I'm looking for kind of a broad swath of things at this moment in time. So even if you're unsure about it, just send it to me, and who knows what's going to happen. So
Fantastic. Yeah. Finally, our final question: what is your favourite part of being an agent?
I love being able to kind of call somebody and say that like their book is going to be published. I just kind of.
Do people cry, Liza?
Oh yeah, I've had people crying on the phone to me. I've had somebody nearly get into a car accident when I said how much their book was going to sell for. I swear I told them to pull over and they didn't believe me. But
sit down. I just tell people sit down now.
But so, and I love just being able, I love doing that, and I love watching a book go from a thought to something you hold in your hand, and something that other people get to share and read and experience. And I'm definitely kind of like that creepy agent that like if I see somebody reading a book that I represent, I just go up and I'm like, how do you like it? And then they tell me, and then I just like leave, and they're probably like, who's that person? But I love the aspect of sharing stories and letting authors be able to do that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Liza, thank you so much for your time today. And Liza and RJ, our judges for a Set Novel Prize, will be announcing the winners early next year. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, subscribe and share with your writer friends. And I look forward to seeing you soon. And until then, keep writing. Liza, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you.